Imogen, can you speak about the relative and the absolute? Obviously, there's only sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and sensations, yet there are bills, jobs, relationships, etc. We can't just bury our heads in the absolute and sit around in wonder all day long. How do you balance the two worlds? Thanks. I would say that you can sit around in wonder all day long, yet still be completely wondrous of the relative. But yes, this is a very practical question in many ways. And we have to, in it, recognize that it is not either or, that it is both and. That the absolute is the formlessness of experience, well, beyond experience, the formlessness of being. And the relative is the form, the wave, the temporary arising. Once you recognize that, you see they're not in conflict. One is arising within another, from another. The relative is a relative, a provisional experience, a temporary, fleeting experience. But there is always the ground of experience. And this is, again, what we're talking about here with the spiritual heart. We are the spiritual heart. We are the ground of being. Within that comes the person, the experience, the senses, the body, thoughts, feelings, all of it. And so on that relative level, doing happens. From the absolute point of view, it's all just a happening. From a relative point of view, this is where things like a sense of free will comes, a sense of a separate self comes, a sense of separation comes. Yet actually, there's no separation, no doer, just these arising, these relative experiences arising. There's no conflict. When you actually look practically, experientially, there is no conflict between the relative and absolute. The relative is all the experience that's happening right now. All the changeability of what is this moment, the sights, the sounds, the sensations, the feelings, the thoughts, the memories, even the sense of I, me, personal, Imogen-ness. Even that. A thought I need to pay a bill, all of that arising right now. Even the sense of I am doing this. I need to do this. I shouldn't do that. Even that is spontaneously, naturally arising and is part of this experience. Birthed from nothingness into everythingness, back to nothingness. This is the dance of life, continuous dance. To me, the only way to balance the two is to actually completely surrender the one that is balancing the two. To see that even that sense of needing to balance is just what's arising. And sense of paying the bill, that's what's arising. I find I want to stay in the absolute and ignore the relative. This is a stage. This is a stage that I see happens, that has been reported across the traditions as well. The subtle rejection of the relative. It's a stage. And it's not to say it's the wrong stage, it's a completely correct stage, but to know that it is a stage is helpful. It's not to bring you to a goal of wanting to get elsewhere other than that stage, because it's entirely correct for where you're at. But it is a stage nonetheless. It's like what happens in the system is there's a relief from the relative. All this recognition of the relative feels very exhausting, and there's this settling back into the absolute that happens, and it feels very relieving for a while. But what that is there's just a very, very subtle thin veil there still. There's still that subtle duality, that subtle sense of this, not that. And that can be there for a while. As you come to dance in the absolute, it's almost like, I've used this analogy in a number of different scenarios and ways, but I'll use it again. It's like sitting in the dark room. Feels nice. After being in the bright lights, the rooms that are all lit and full of stuff, bright lights and shining down, it's lots going on. Suddenly you're in a darkened room. It's like, oh. But again, it's a stage. Because eventually it's recognized that the beauty of the relative is just as profound, just as magnificent, just as wonderful as the ground. It's where that last veil sort of drops, that sense of relative and absolute. Even that veil drops. And it's recognized they're not two things. In the same way, the ocean and the wave are not two things. One is beingness at rest. That's the absolute. One is beingness at play. This is the relative. One is not better than the other, just different qualities, just different happenings. As you have found your love for the absolute, I have no doubt you will find your love for the relative as well. And in turn, you will see they are not separate.